Welcome to SHOWstudio. It's the last panel of New York Fashion Week and we're going to be talking about the Marc Jacobs show. It's a really good one to talk about because I think Marc always kind of like sets the pace for New York, but obviously because he's right at the end, he kind of flips it on its head at the same time, and it is the show that everyone kind of looks to. This was a particularly kind of spectacular one, I think in part because there's been a lot of changes at Marc Jacobs. Obviously they've shut down the Marc by Marc line, so this was the first time that kind of, you know, Marc by Marc's been sort of pushed into Marc Jacobs. They did a big kind of a festival of a show at an amazing theatre with a huge capacity. So there's lots to talk about. But before we sort of begin our dissections of the fashion and the show, I'll let my great set of panellists, who got up very early to be here, introduce themselves, starting with you, Charlotte.
I'm Charlotte Roberts. I co-edit The Mush Pit with Bertie Brandis, and I'm a stylist.
I'm Harriet Verney, and I'm a journalist.
I'm Stavros Karelis, and I'm the founder and bank director of Machine A Store.
I'm Hettie Judah. I'm a writer and editor, and I specialise in fashion, art and design.
So I want to start by just talking a little bit about the changes that have been going on at Marc Jacobs, because it feels like it's one of those times for the brand that could be a difficult point, obviously shutting down the Marc by Marc line, and there's been, you know, some changes to the way the company is structured, etc., etc. But it feels like there's so much kind of fun coming out of the brand at the same time. You know, they just did that amazing campaign with Cher, Willow Smith, really great, really great people in that. They've got a lot of press, and they've just done this spectacular store. What do we make of how the brand is trying to position itself at the moment and their sort of communication strategy? Hettie, I'll go to you because you're looking
I think fun is really the key word. I mean, I think you know, also with that amazing party invitation that was sent out around the place a couple of weeks ago, it is kind of, I think it's positioning itself as the brand that you go to for clothes to have fun in, and it's, you know, in a way quite starkly in opposition, as it always has been, to maybe the dominant theme of New York Fashion Week, which is a bit more kind of sombre. And, you know, I think it's it's kind of joie de vivre, isn't it? And I think what's quite interesting with the campaign that you're showing now on the screens, is that it really kind of cements Marc Jacobs' long-term relationships. So it has a lot of people that have been involved in the brand in the past, in the publicity, in the inspiration. But then it's also looking to new generation and the generation beyond it as well. So I think on the one hand, I think it's cementing that kind of party-going, fun aspect to the Marc Jacobs image.
What do we make of celebrity campaigns? Because he's done some really infamous ones. You know, Victoria Beckham in the Marc Jacobs bag was like, I think, you know, brilliant campaign. Then Miley Cyrus, right through to what we've got today. Do we like celebrity campaigns?
I like his ones. I think they're always a parody of the character that he puts in there.
Like the Winona Ryder one, when she shoplifted the Marc Jacobs dress, and then finally Jürgen Teller was like, yeah, let's do Winona now. Like, he's funny. I'm not mad on everyone using Kendall Jenner.
Why not?
Me neither.
Because she's a pretty girl, but that's it. It's so transparent, the kind of Instagram, social media hype around her, that it's sort of tedious, I think.
Quite dull.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not into her Instagram, then...
Yeah.
Do you think that is always going to be a side to these kind of campaigns? Like, even with the use of someone like Cher or Willow Smith, you know that that's going to explode on social. Is that kind of... Do you think campaigns are being made with that in mind now, right through from kind of the execution to who they include?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And is it hindering creativity?
No, it's just a different way of doing it, isn't it? It has to be very instant, that image, I think.
Yeah.
People share it and then they forget about it.
Like
And
Joan Didion for Celine, for instance, like that was like massive, but also it was someone that was quite exciting and quite different. So there's two sides. There's like the Kendall Jenner side, and then there's the Celine Joan Didion side, which is kind of the two positive and negative sides of the coin, I guess.
It's quite Katie Grand's influence, isn't it? That whole...
Yeah.
And you don't know whether she's just sort of joking, like putting Liz Hurley on the cover, and whether she's just sort of, you know, being quite cheeky, or whether it's serious. And I think I'm quite freaked out by it, but then I buy into it as well.
Exactly.
Do you not think it's a way of showing the might of Marc Jacobs though? Because it's like before he put Kendall in the show, no one used her, and now she's like a very normal, serious model. You see her across, she's been in countless shows at New York Fashion Week, often ones that aren't kind of humorous or culty. You know, she was in like Diane Born Festival. It's like, you know, there's a kind of
real ones.
You know, ones that don't have that kind of like lol, let's do a bit of an ironic thing.
Yeah.
Well, that is, I think you're right. That's the Katie Grand influence,
So
isn't
Katie,
it? Because like she'll put Kendall on Love, and then that feeds into the. It's Katie. I think maybe perhaps more than Marc Jacobs. I'm sure she had to. I don't know. persuade him a little bit to do that.
I'm pretty sure as well. I mean, I think that they're a great duo and they're working for so many years together. So obviously, if you see the Love magazine, you can understand kind of like what all the influences and which people Katie loves and wants like to put forward. And I'm sure, you know, by having the direction of the show, you know, obviously, you know, these models are going to be applied into the Marc Jacobs show too. And also it's kind of like these shows, and also I think these campaigns are kind of like a mirror to what's going on in the society and what is current right now. I mean, when we talk about social media, it's always about what is the latest trend, what is the newest trend, and then if you want to have like this kind of domino effect that goes everywhere, and you know everyone is retweeting it, you know, Instagramming it, then you kind of like using all these people and all these faces that they're so current, but you never know what Katie or Marc Jacobs probably have back in their mind, you know, if they're using these people, you know, and what they want like to, what is the message that they want to get out.
I think it's interesting you say message, because I think that's one of the things that makes a campaign like this and their work interesting, is it's never just the character in there, it's always kind of the layers. So I think what's so good about this is it taps into all those things that, you know, when you talk about the Kendall Jenner side of social media, it's very pure and simple. It's like she has a lot of followers, you put her in a campaign, she'll share it. Whereas with this, there's obviously that side to the that it's nodding to with social media, but it's also nodding to social media's love for kind of slight bad taste or slight kitsch, you know, and it's also like nodding to kind of nostalgia and all those different layers that make kind of internet culture. I think they're really good at getting that at the particular moment.
But I think also it's something that you said as well, which is particularly interesting and important, is that obviously going through many changes lately with Marc Jacobs, you know, departing from Louis Vuitton, you know, changing the brand, and you know, Marc by Marc is now together with merging with Marc Jacobs. I think it's also a way of showing, you know, that Marc Jacobs has been here for a long time, and he's got a great and amazing amount of support from so many celebrities and people, and it has influenced so many people that they're happy to be involved with his campaign. So it's kind of like also a way of showing the strength and power of the designer himself as well.
That's a good point.
I mean, among the other people that are in this campaign are Rachel Feinstein and John Curran, who are maybe people that wouldn't generally be recognised on social media, but they, you know, Rachel Feinstein's been a big part of his brand since 2004. I think she was in the campaign in 2004, and certainly the collection was quite inspired by her. And then she did his set in 2012, and it's like the kind of, this is the family. So it's his family he's laying out in a way.
But then, like, the difference between obviously when Jürgen Teller stopped doing it because of the Miley Cyrus. He refused to do the Miley Cyrus campaign basically, so David Sims did it. I think there's like quite an interesting turning point between the kind of last few that David Sims have done, because they are more celebrity driven and they are more kind of like overt in their messaging perhaps than the Teller ones were, which were quite very odd and kind of bizarre. It's an interesting kind of evolution.
It's interesting, we've talked about humour a lot, and people keep saying fun and funny and humour, and I think it's really hot. I think that's what's interesting with Marc Jacobs, how he always manages to do something that is funny without ever seeming like it's infantile or kind of like silly, because, you know, the humour in fashion, I think it's a really hard line to get. We talk about this on the panels quite a lot, but like at the moment the only other people who are really doing like funny fashion is like the kind of Jeremy Scott, Moschino type thing, which is very different. You know, it's much more jokey, whereas I think what's interesting with Marc Jacobs is the way he does it, but maintains the sense of being a very elevated brand, and I think that's really maybe Karl Lagerfeld does it well at Chanel as well, but I think wit in fashion, it's really who does it well, do we think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel like, I mean, I'm not a big Chanel fan, I have to say, and I feel like
How rude, I'm wearing Chanel shoes, but fine.
No, I mean, I felt like kind of, you know, Lagerfeld, when he does it, it becomes like a parody of a parody of a parody. Whereas I feel that when Marc Jacobs does it, he's still got quite a strong connection to what's going on, and he feels much more part of it, and he's expressing something that's coming from within culture rather than an elevated commentary on it. So I think he is passionately involved in it. It's not a kind of, you know, a meta commentary. It's interesting that the young designers at the moment are being much more, it's not, I think it makes sense given the climate, but like I think usually you'd look to the young London designers for a lot of wit and kind of silliness and, you know, exuberance, but I think you're getting much more kind of seriousness and politics from the young designers at the moment. There's a lot of kind of real,
I think there is the kind of club culture fun element we see in the work of people like Charles Jeffrey or Ed Marler perhaps, but I think it's much more about politics than it is about kind of revelry, which I think is quite interesting.
Isn't everything about politics though now?
Yeah.
It's very on trend.
No,
I just think our generation is very into politics. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And that's the new rebellion, is being into politics, which our parents probably couldn't give a toss about, really.
But that's another thing, it's like wit, it's very hard to be political in fashion, like it's very hard to be funny in fashion, because people always like, oh, it's just clothes, fashion's frivolous. So I think that's what's interesting, is kind of when you get that balance, right? It's almost easier to be political when you're a young designer than it would be for someone like Marc Jacobs, because you can always be that you're always an outsider, so you've not got that huge...
It's not they're not luxury brands yet.
Yeah.
So, like,
I feel like they have this sort of, dare I say it, Warhol factory element to them, being Katie Grand and Marc Jacobs and that whole little crew, where they churn out these sort of superstars that come. I mean, Cara, she's still around, but she's not a model really anymore. She's doing modelling. They churn out these superstars, and they're pop famous, and then the next one comes along, and it's quite interesting.
But maybe that's also why this campaign is interesting, because it shows that they don't drop people. Because I think that is what I find interesting about their work, is there is an amount of loyalty there, which I think is interesting, that they revisit the same people, like...
Yeah, like Debbie Mazar and like Sophia, like he's obsessed with the same people he was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I also think that when it's specific moments into someone's career, like I think Marc Jacobs is going through that kind of moment, you know, where, you know, it's something very, very specific going on with the whole his company and the vibe and the message that he wants to send out. So I think that this is a reason perhaps why he puts forward a kind of a retrospective as well with what he believes, what he likes from his brand, what is the real connections and where he's get his inspirations from, and also connects it with the new what is coming from the brand, which I think Katie Grant is really good about, you know, he puts him straight in contact with what is the most current, the latest thing, you know, that is around the market that you have to have in your show, basically, really much. So I think this is like a really, really good combination. But at the moment, I think that especially this campaign was a strong message to the public that, you know, this is who Marc Jacobs is, and, you know, he's been here for many years and has offered so many important things with great supporters from everywhere.
Talking about, you know, how long he's been around, the kind of second topic that I wanted to talk about was grunge and the continued relevance of it, because I think it's something, it's interesting, you talked about him kind of looking back while looking forward, and I think that collection, you know, you see it mentioned all the time, the Perry Ellis and grunge collection, Spring Summer
92?
No, I think it was Spring Summer 93, but it was shown in 92. Yeah, that's why I was like really referring to my notes. Yeah, 92, but shown in 93, shown in 92. And people talk about it all the time, and I think it's something that comes up all the time, and it still influences people. I think people reference, like you probably know more about this than I do as a stylist, like people reference editorial imagery of that collection all the time. And I think it's interesting to talk about kind of the continued relevance of that aesthetic, but also the effect that that had at the time. Because I was like revisiting some reviews at the time, and like, you know, Susie Menketh made a badge that said "Grunge is ghastly" that she like handed out at Fashion Week. You can see it, and Ian Webb did this really great book of like tickets and ephemera, and he's got that badge and he put it in it because she really hated grunge. But then Cathy Horan like kind of wrote about how, you know, grunge and fashion, they don't sit well together, and I'm interested, just that look and that aesthetic, it comes back, you know, constantly, and it's never really left fashion, and it's just interesting thinking about that in the context of Marc Jacobs' legacy. Why is grunge so appealing, do we think?
It's about the youth. I think, you know, it's something that is straight connected with youth. I mean, you know, it's a way of living. It's a way of, you know, music. What your inspirations are. You know, how you want to look like. I mean, I think it's something that you see. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that, you know, you don't see older people, you know, have like an amazing grunge style, but I think it's really connected with like youth and music, and that this is why, you know, it's so relevant, because every younger generation, every new generation that's coming along wants to connect with this thing again. And I mean, I think that it's I think for me it's coming really from a more styling point of view, instead of like actual, you know, collections and clothes. I mean, obviously there are like pieces that you can find almost every collection, but I think it is the way that he put things together, and it has a very, very styling point and beginning, basically, the whole thing. So
yeah. I mean, I'd just like to add to that. I think it's one of the kind of key things that happened in the early 90s was that suddenly there was this idea that rather than wearing a kind of total designer outfit, rather than just wearing designer clothes or just wearing high street or just wearing something else, it was the start of that real kind of like take something from the flea market, take something from the high street, take something from a kind of elevated brand and wear it in a very kind of relaxed décontracté style. And so that whole kind of grunge aesthetic, and then I guess the kind of Korean Day photography and that kind of Jürgen Teller look that were kind of coming out around that time, made actually, in a way, rather than what they actually did is make designer clothing something that people in their maybe 20s would aspire to purchase. It actually brought designer clothing down to a new generation.
But it's quite odd, that concept that it kind of starts from the street and then the sort of couture start imitating it, and then it's regurgitated and sold back to people on the street
like
by Topshop.
When they were doing that, and then Chanel did it, and then get it copied in Topshop. But it's,
Like,
that is the weirdest thing when it's like Chanel are copying like
it's
Nike
a weird circle, isn't it?
then
it gets
Zara copying Chanel,
and then back
like,
to
makes my brain ache.
But it put a real halt to that 80s look of very done up and dolled up. Like,
it was kind of an up yours to luxury, I guess.
Yeah, imagine how liberating that was. To finally just
like
throw away your hairbrush and
put a little beanie hat on.
Yeah.
But I'm interested, why are the 90s so like, in fashion at the moment? Why are they being so referenced? Because I almost feel like it's like if people talk a lot about the time at the moment and how people, you know, are so into appearance now and they're so into branding now. And so it's interesting that that time is being referenced, because in a way it would make more sense if the 80s were being referenced and people were going back to that kind of like luxury money.
But I think it's freer, like you know what you were saying about sort of everything being slightly political. I think the 90s had that kind of sense of freedom that perhaps the 80s or the millennium didn't, and also it's in that sort of 15-year or 20-year cycle that naturally happens anyway. Our generation just started working. And then, it's I think it's a freedom potentially that appeals, and like a Korean Day Kate Moss picture is just always gonna get you loads of Instagram likes.
It's tricky, isn't it, though, because I think that kind of aesthetic, that very real kind of quite sort of tired, worn out look, it's so copied, and I wonder if we're getting to a point where it's harder, it's always hard to create new work and new imagery in fashion, but I think stuff is being so referenced, particularly that kind of collection and aesthetic, and I worry that obsession with nostalgia is stopping people from doing stuff that's particularly...
They'll get sick of it eventually.
Yeah.
They have to. But it's not what it used to be. When you go into Topshop and you see like a t-shirt that they've cut up and it's slashed here that says like Metallica on it, like that's not grunge. That's the opposite of grunge.
They started selling Ramones t-shirts in Sainsbury's.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah. 2 by Sainsbury's.
It was quite fabulous. I kind of wanted one because I thought it was quite brilliant. Like, but you'd have to wear it inside out so you can see the label, because it's kind of that irony. It's very funny. Shall we? I want to talk also about designers and social media, which is very pertinent for Marc Jacobs because he's had a fun year in social media with his nice nude selfie. But I think maybe before we do it, it's
what?
Do we get to see that? I've not seen that one.
He didn't know about direct messaging, obviously.
He put up, and but I think what's so brilliant about Marc Jacobs is like most houses, you know, if a designer had done that and you brought it up on a panel, they'd be really angry. But like he's made so many jokes about it.
He made a t-shirt about it, his caption that he said.
Exactly, like he made a t-shirt about it, and
was
at
it
the
revenge
show,
porn? No.
No, he was sending like a sexy
Here we go.
And he posted it online.
Yeah, he's sending a sexy pic. There it is.
Yeah, it's
I mean, he looks slamming hot. Like, well done to him.
Wow.
It's yours to try.
At the show,
wasn't he confused about like sending someone else a picture or something like that happened, right?
Was he what?
I thought that he was sending this picture to someone
he was
someone else.
trying to direct message.
And,
direct message.
I wish he atted the person he was trying to...
I know, that would be good. But at the show, they had a thing that said, like what colour, they had like a little programme because the show was at a theatre, and it said like what colour Calvin's was Marc wearing, and his so I think that's what's so great is he can like take the piss out of himself.
Yeah.
And, like, it's really, really funny.
God, he does some of his pants around his ankles, doesn't he?
I think he looks
Yes.
good.
I like
He looks amazing. Yeah, I mean,
That's the new Instagram thing though, because the picture's bigger as well now. So like you could do you know, an accidental, if you're a bit naked.
Or Caroline Flack.
Yeah, lip slip.
It's like I'm really addicted to the Daily Mail. It's really coming out now, isn't it? It's really embarrassing. It used to be highbrow. She tried to take like a sexy pic, and then you could see her nipples because it was like too long.
It's big,
yeah.
but you know you crop it, but you think you cropped it, but
yeah.
Watch out.
Watch out with your
Your
know what you're like.
Do it on purpose.
So before we talk more about social media, should we actually watch the show and we can kind of ponder it as we see what's happening? So just a bit of background on the show. They had it, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, it's the Ziegfeld Theatre in Manhattan,
Wow.
which is...
Sorry. Sorry, Lou.
Sorry, that really made me laugh.
Continue.
Sorry. Anyways, let's just watch the show.
While we watch the show, can I get some peppermint tea? Sorry,
Yeah, of course. Can I actually have a tea as well? That'd be so
Oh,
nice.
can I have a tea?
Oh, please, me too.
Can we have a bit of music?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Oh, that's really nice.
Is it? Okay.
I couldn't work out whether the music they were playing was the music that's being played on stage.
It's probably not because they can never get music rights for the live streams.
Okay.
Okay.
Because it looked like it would have been amazing.
Yeah, we look really intellectual. And
Like we do already. I don't already.
What are you talking about?
how we'd look cleverer if we were smoking.
Oh, I see. So it's a really, really big collection.
Yeah, it's massive.
Are these
absolutely massive.
hired
And-
extras on the side, or are they real people? No.
No, they're real people, I think.
So this
There's
is just
like
a
a red-
complete piss
yeah.
take of a red carpet catwalk.
And they do like,
What's called celebrity, yeah.
And look, there's a plaid shirt, grunge.
Yeah, exactly.
Revisited.
I actually set these topics like 3 weeks ago, so it shows that it should be a trend forecast.
So on style.
I know, look
I
at
feel that's more like she's escaped in her pajamas from a boarding school.
But also, I love how Marc Jacobs is very anti-social media, and now he's like selfie king.
Yeah, but everyone
On
gives
his
into,
terms,
Everyone
yeah?
gives into the selfie eventually.
Yeah.
I like this. It's like what Kate Moss said, think twin set, don't do twin set.
That is brilliant.
So, wow. It sounded really sarcastic. It wasn't meant to.
The casting for this show is really interesting, given what we were just talking about with models, because I think.
I mean, they had Emily.
But she's in the campaign.
Who is
she?
Emily
Yeah.
Unpronounceable. Emily Ratter.
The one in blurred
Emily
lines.
Unpronounceable.
The one that's in blurred lines.
The
God.
one who was in the blurred lines
Think about what
video.
people say
I'm
about
really
you,
hoping
mind
that's
about Lou.
ironic.
Pardon?
I'm really hoping that's ironic.
No, but she was in the campaign as well, and they made her
Yeah.
look amazing. I think she's
Who is
quite
she?
great.
Who is she?
She was in the Blurred Lines video, and then she made a cameo in Gone Girl, and
Oh,
then she's in the brilliant DJ movie, We Are Your Friends.
That was the brilliant DJ movie.
Yeah, it's
We
so
Are Your
bad.
Friends.
It's got Zac Efron in it.
Wow.
There's Binks.
Oh, I saw her at
Stella
Giles' show.
Lucia is one of my favourite
Yeah,
models. She's amazing.
And they had Adriana Lima as well,
She's amazing.
slamming.
They look like they've been caught out in the rain with all their makeup on with kind of.
What I really like is the really high slits at the side, because Raf Simons
Yeah.
did
I
that in
really
the
love
Dior
that.
Couture,
Yeah.
and it was like right the way up, and then it was just kind of held together by these little bits of.
I like those. They're very huge trousers, Harriet. Those.
Thank you.
Here she is. There's Emily.
Isn't that Kendall?
Is that
No,
Kendall?
that's Kendall, and then that's Emily coming up.
She just looks like a cheap Kendall, if that's possible to get any cheaper. but-
Ow.
I think she's quite pretty.
No, she's very pretty. It's just more the whole men's mag titty shots
Yeah.
that I'm less into.
So is it Rent a Crowd or not? Or there?
I don't think it is Rent a Crowd.
No, because if you listen to the video, they're all saying they're coming. You
Yeah.
know, they're taking the photographs. And
She's
like
one
that.
of my favourite models. I love her.
amazing.
Feels quite
Wesley,
American,
Wesley.
quite all-American colours, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It's kind of really
Really
Americana.
I think
yeah.
it's super, super grunge because of the plaid, like even like the little kilty
Yeah.
skirt under
Yeah.
that. Like,
Like-
Then at the end it gets really glitzy and
Yeah.
like ball gowny, doesn't it?
You don't
But,
like that?
yeah. But Lou, did you read that big feature that was the Making Marc Jacobs feature that came out a couple of weeks ago?
no, what was that in?
It was online, and I feel really bad because it was an incredible feature. But one of the things they were talking about moving the brand forward was the fact that he actually has very few stores in the US. And I was
Well, they
wondering.
just shut the big store as well.
Apparently they've only got like 20 stores in the US, and so I was wondering whether this was really cementing the
Frozen on
American aspect of the brand identity
Yeah, that's
as well.
interesting,
It's very
actually.
varsity jackets,
Yeah.
red, white, and blue.
But I think that is what he's clever at with
That's
these.
quite random, isn't it?
But I think it's meant to be
grunge with an orchestra.
I think that's the thing. It's the high-low.
Yeah.
The clashes. Yeah.
Because he's like in his 50s now, isn't he? So he's got to,
It's got to what?
you know, be a grown-up as well.
But I think they also have to think about who'll buy the clothes, and it's like Marc Jacobs clothes. The make is really beautiful, and they are incredibly expensive. So it's like as much as.
And also kind of a bit of a like, now they've merged Marc by Marc with Marc. This is kind of the ultimate like coming out, like we're going to do something spectacular. So.
Yeah. And it is the ultimate merging as well, to have that kind of faded America t-shirt with like the glitter and the sequins.
So how's the price point changed since?
The price point hasn't changed, but they're going to have more stuff that's like completely covering all different price points. So as much as they'll have the super expensive stuff, all that kind of bitty stuff that Marc did. Thank you so much. Will be.
Can I have some water?
Barbara.
Just some water. Thanks.
Yeah, so they're going to have much more within the offer that's kind of hits all those different price points.
This is kind of like the ultimate social media show though, isn't it?
Yeah. But there were so many props that everyone got Marc Jacobs, like I think they got like cups and popcorn.
Yeah.
But what I don't get is, does it actually
It's on the Chanel
transcribe
level.
in sales? Do the people who look at Instagram buy?
I think what's really
how can they tell if it's actually working?
I think it does. I think it has a huge impact. If you speak to designers who use social media incredibly well, like someone like Mary Katranzi is a good example of this. She always gets talked about in that. Like she uses Instagram so well to get people interested in her clothes and to talk directly to her shoppers. I think the problem though is this lag, because it's like if people see this all over Instagram and they're like, oh, this is super cool, I love this. It's like they can't buy it, and I think that's the big problem. Oh, thank you so much.
Alexander Schulman always said that. There's something very weird about.
It's really weird.
You can't buy. You can buy bikini in February.
Designers about it, and they do say their shoppers don't understand. They're like they don't get that lag, and they're really confused by it and really frustrated by it. So it's like.
I mean, this is why Louis Vuitton's doing those series exhibitions, so
Yeah.
that they're suddenly creating a lot of hype around the present season as well.
Yeah.
So that's opening tomorrow.
But I think that's, it's going to be really exciting that. I think that's what's really hard is like if you do this big show while you're still trying to push current season, it's like getting that.
Well, Jeremy Scott does it with, doesn't he? You can buy the jumpers immediately.
Yeah.
But I mean, Loewe has done this, released immediately, and Gucci now is releasing immediately, you know. So it's, I mean, the brands try to connect like somehow, with showing like the next season right now. But I think it's with the social media and when it comes like down to the sales, it's also. I mean, we have noticed, when you've got like a current collection and, a designer is showing the next season collection, it always helps the current sales too, because, it's all about the name, it's all about the brand, and, the more, buzz is going on around like a name, the more, people start searching, and as the more the customers are searching, the more they're willing to buy current season, and also, to be interested for the next season too. So I think that with the show of Marc, right now, there are going to be lots of people visiting now the Instagram, the shops, to check even current collections and see like what they can buy and what they can get.
And you have to think also, as much as we look at each season and they seem really different, and Marc's really good at kind of, working with a theme and making one season completely distinct from the next. There are so many carryover pieces that actually, it's like if you liked what you were seeing here, there would be pieces within, like if you like a suit, for example, you can go online and find something relatively similar. From his current collection or his kind of commercial collection.
It's a bit glam rock, some of the pieces earlier.
It's like
Big
very
shoulders.
50s, but then also very 80s.
Yeah.
I just think it's like the ultimate
80s.
mashup, which is interesting given, all the stuff we've talked about with the brand, like merging old and new, merging high and low, merging kind of like Marc with Marc Jacobs. It's like, it feels like he's kind of consolidating everything. It's not a greatest hits, but it's,
best of all years.
Do we like it?
I thought it was incredible.
I think it's an amazing collection.
It's my favourite that he's done for.
And I think it's super. It's going to be very, very commercial. I mean, it's going to sell extremely well.
I like that suit.
Yeah, it's really.
And I think despite being so enormous and having such a variety of influences, it does actually feel very coherent as well.
Yeah,
there
really.
are definite messages you take straight off it.
That print looks like Mimi a little
Looks like
Oh
bit. Mimi, Wade, looks like that print on
This
there.
looks like me. I was like, okay, sure.
It's me, Hollywood icon.
Yeah, we're definitely back in the realm of knicker flashing, aren't we, with dresses?
But I like that kind of pinstripey little tiny suit that she was wearing, like the little pants, because it reminds me of like his fetish
I love
collection
that top.
he did, and that I love the carry-on elements, like that kind of silky colour, and the colours that he does really well, like that grey and those dark, like burgundy, you know, those tones that you really associate with his work.
Yeah, but I think he's picking up on so many references from his previous collections. You've got a lot of the military kind of frogging that's coming in, you've got the kind of grungy aspect, you've got the kind of Studio 54 kind of sequin craziness, you've got, it feels like
he's
drawing in a lot of his previous
Wow.
collections and kind of cementing them into something.
There she is.
Yeah, Beth Ditto, absolutely amazing.
She looks great.
She looks fabulous. Which is interesting given what we were talking about with Love and the icons, because she was on, was it the first issue of Love?
She was the first issue,
yeah, exactly. So then it's like...
Oh my god.
Wow.
She looks so cool.
That dress looks amazing on her. And one of my sons was watching this with me this morning. He went, "That's a very bosomy lady."
Oh, that's cute. I like how you put that.
I thought she closed the show. But she was just bang on the middle.
But I like that they just put her in the middle, because if she closed it, it was almost would have been like they were making kind of a spectacle of her. And I like that she's just in there, like, looking amazing.
No, they've got kind of Runaway Brides kind of finishing, I think. But yeah, they've got the full kind of, they've got all of these amazing kind of marching bands and cheerleaders and...
Cowboys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like it's about like tropes and gangs and that kind of thing, but then...
American gangs.
Are you feeling a bit of that Marc Jacobs, Luella and Katie kind of thing coming through with that?
But
but I think he's so influenced by those people around him and those women around him and stuff, so you almost think, of course, like, they'd have a massive impact.
Now, the other thing that this feature that I should have sent everybody
was
talking about was about whether they were going to take the brand public, and one of the big criticisms was that he wasn't very good at doing accessories. He didn't have enough bags. And if you wanted to be a big boy brand, you needed to have bags. And I just look at this, I feel like he has a problem integrating bags into silhouettes. There are some, but they feel a bit added on.
It's because it's quite unfreeing when you have a handbag.
I think it is, and I find it kind of refreshing that there's not bags, because it means they're moving really kind of like flamboyantly.
And it's a long walk as well. I mean, they're going a very long way.
She's got one.
Yeah,
Tiny.
but it still feels a bit,
He is wicked at perfumes though. Which is one thing to bear in mind. We were talking about that the other day, how everyone used to wear Marc Jacobs Daisy.
Yeah, Daisy. It's like the sixth form perfume.
Yeah, it's the smell of my youth. That, and then we were talking about Moschino Happy, you know, like the...
Oh my god, yeah. And
that
Dolce
weird
& Gabbana
dildo
light
nose.
blue.
There's like Jake and Dinos Chapman with huge nose.
can't
That
remember.
Moschino one, you know, with the black head with a huge
No,
thing.
no, it was the orange and light blue one.
You know which one I'm talking about.
I didn't
though,
know, I
know. You know what I'm talking about.
No one knows.
That Moschino one. Is it Cheap and Chic? And he had a red top and he looked a bit like a guard outside Buckingham Palace. I'm not imagining this.
We'll Google it.
You're right, babes.
It says tea. They're Googling it now. Cheap and Chic, Moschino.
There's also this odd, it kind of also felt like there was this odd imperial Russian kind of thing coming into it a bit as well, which I couldn't quite, I mean, it looks, they're incredible and they're very beautiful bits of tailoring as well.
Still do nice, yeah.
But I like the pieces that are almost a little bit, like, I think there's a lot of kind of the bad taste element into this collection.
Yeah.
And I think it's done so well, which is really, really nice.
Some bits are a bit me down, maybe.
But I think there's that
Bit
option.
theatrical, yeah. But it's good to see that, especially in New York Fashion Week.
And also it's in a theatre, so it's like the clothes have to live up, and there is so much theatre and character in the clothes, and that's really nice.
So these are the two final ones. I was wondering whether that rip on the back of her dress is deliberate or not.
Well,
but I thought that they were maybe kind of felt they were maybe meant to be runaway, but it felt to me like the whole thing was about kids, you know, posh girls escaping from their boarding school or their debutante
She could have put a heel
going
through
to a concert or something.
Probably.
I thought these are two brides that had run away from their weddings or something.
It's interesting because I do think last season had that kind of like slightly madcap eclectic magpie thing, and it's nice that it's kind of continued through. I think it's really nice.
But it doesn't feel erratic.
No, it doesn't. If you compare this to the military one, you know, where that was so kind of like almost quite austere and uniform, and then.
And the hair and makeup's brilliant.
But it goes right back to the grunge thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
Kind of undoneness and
undone glamour.
So funny.
It's really
Circus.
good. Yeah.
God, that's a lot of people.
I know.
I think that was a beautiful show, actually.
Yeah. We impressed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's just loads of fun, but it also feels very strong, which is nice. Like it doesn't.
I think he cemented the fact that he can really cut incredibly beautiful, very structured garments, as well as create something that's very fun and boppy.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be the next head at Chanel after Carl with something like this.
You do think
Carl's never going to die, come on. He's mummified. He's a waxwork of himself.
150.
One thing
150 feels 30.
with the Marc by Marc Jacobs shows, I remember there being that aspect to the last few that have happened where they were wanting it to be stuff that girls could kind of create themselves in their bedrooms, and there was a certain element to that with all the kind of cut-up sweatshirts as well.
Yeah, definitely. But I think also that... Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just thinking that, this collection is applying to both his customers, the Marc Jacobs customers and Marc by Marc customers as well, because this is something extremely important. I mean, it's all the styling and collections and clothes are really are really important. But in the end of the day, it's also what is going to be the appeal to the real customers between the Marc by Marc and the Marc Jacobs customers. So I think this is a collection where it's going to appeal to both of them equally good.
Bitty, I think the first look is quite interesting. Just to reflect on it, is that it is almost like a kind of like sweatshirt. It's very kind of. I think that's interesting that he could have.
You can digest these outfits quite a lot. I mean, there's lots on them going on. So I'm sure when you walk in a retail and you see all these pieces one by one hanging on a rail, there are going to be lots of different options and choices for a really big variety of customer, which I'm assuming they are targeted right now because they have to satisfy quite a lot of customers with this merger.
I really like that America top. It reminds me of being small and cool.
Did Katie style it, this one?
Yeah. I think it's really, really great. I think it's a really nice end to New York as well, where everything goes back to what you were saying at the start. Hettie, everything is kind of very together and very polished, and it's really nice to see something that's quite vibrant and it is quite cheerful, which is nice. It's that kind of madness of fashion, which is really lovely.
And you were talking about Instagram earlier. I mean, the other thing that seems to be increasingly important with Instagram is that stuff is very, very recognisable when people wear it, and all of this. In fact, any piece from this collection, you'd notice it. If somebody wore it on Instagram, you'd know immediately it was Marc Jacobs.
Yeah, that's really good. It's that kind of. It's a really good point to say that. I think that kind of branding through print and embellishment and all of those things that make it really recognisable, like the faces on that. I remember how many seasons ago it was when Prada did all the faces. And it's you think how everyone knew what that was, and I think it will be kind of the same for this. I love that number 21 is one of my favourites because it is so grungy,
button downs.
So good. So do we think that this has kind of silenced anyone who said that it was a kind of time of difficulty for Marc Jacobs? Because there's been an undertone of that, I think, to some of the coverage of the changes there.
I personally think that it's definitely a challenging period in terms of business, but he's not alone. He's got a great business side, business manager, business partner. I'm sorry. That I'm sure they have dealt with everything and how they have to launch everything and mesh everything, and I think that it's a showcase of his ability. I mean, this is what he can do, and he always has been extremely talented, and he's got the right team of people. So I'm pretty sure this is an extremely well done collection, from a commercial point of view, also from a creative point of view. So I think it's going to be a great moment for him. Yeah, there are changes happening, but I think every company undertakes some changes and they move forward.
That's a good note to end
on. No, but I mean, I really think that he's really powerful. I don't think that he's going to be affected in a negative way. I think it's just things happening from a different perspective, and I think he's coming out as a main force right now. That I don't want to separate my strength into many different brands, and I'm going to focus just on this, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring in the game whatever I brought for Louis Vuitton, what I did by Marc, and for Marc Jacobs. So I'll put everything together, and this is going to be my brand. It's going to be extremely successful.
Look at Beth. Oh. Can't help but make you happy. Well, should we give them a round of applause to wrap things up? Balance your tea.